Hi everyone, and welcome to Gas City Gaming's set review of Ixalan. In this video, we'll be taking a look at all the black cards from the set. And just keep in mind, though, when you're watching these, that we're looking at the cards more in a limited context, so your pre-release events, sealed, drafts, stuff like that. If I think a card's good enough to make it for standard, we'll kind of have some thoughts on that as we go, but for the most part, we're looking at these cards in a limited environment. Also, I'm not a Pro Tour player or anything like that. I'm just a guy who's been around the game for a few years, likes to talk about the new cards, and wants to hear what you think about these as well. Do you agree with what I think? Do you disagree? Do you think they're going to be better than I think? Worse? I'd love to hear from you and have some conversations with you in the comments section down below. Let's get to it. So our first card of the black cards in Ixalan is Anointed Deacon. It is 4 generic mana and a black for a common vampire cleric. It is a 3/3, and it says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have target vampire you get +2/+0 until end of turn. So this card on a board with some other vampires is going to be really good. One of them is going to get bigger, more powerful. Hopefully that's a flying one. If not, it might not get through. On an empty board, this card is a 5/3. For 5, it's not great. It's so I would probably play this card in my draft vampire deck, because in your sealed, you might not get enough really good vampire cards to where you're guaranteed to have other vampires out at the same time as this guy. If you are, cool. Hey, that's also good. But Anointed Deacon on its own is kind of one of my last includes in my deck. Because you usually how you want to make your constructed deck is, okay, your big bombs, your removal, and then you have your big value creatures and spells, and then, if you have to, you can fill out the last couple of picks with some creatures, your 20 to 23rd or 24th cards. This, for me, is one of those 20 to 23rd or 24th cards. Because on its own, it doesn't do anything big and splashy. It needs help in order to do something good. And this can trade with my vanilla 3/1 out of Light or something like that. So, I'm not super high on Anointed Deacon, but it could squeak its way into a vampire deck. Arguel's Bloodfast is our legendary flip enchantment from black in this set. So it's a generic and a black mana for a rare legendary enchantment. It says generic black and pay 2 life. You can draw a card. Well, it says draw a card. It doesn't say main. It just says draw a card. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 5 or less life, you may transform Arguel's Bloodfast into Temple of Aclazots. I'm butchering that. Into Temple of Aclazots. It's a legendary land. It taps to add a black to your mana pool, as land does. And then it also says tap, sacrifice a creature. You gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. Now, that could be real good. Don't get me wrong. But the fact that I have to be below 5 life before this goes off makes me nervous. So late game, if both me and my opponent are on low life, okay, I'll flip it. Because at the beginning of my upkeep, okay, I'm at 6. Okay, I'll pay 2 life on the end of my opponent's turn. But even that makes me nervous because there's 4-point burn in this set. So okay, I'll put myself to 4. Okay, I'll transform it. Then on my turn, I'll sacrifice a creature to gain 5 life back or whatever. Put me to 9. Okay, cool. But it still just makes me nervous, the fact that I have to be that low before this does anything. Could be good once it flips. Don't get me wrong. This effect could win you games because you just, okay, tap, sack, tap, sack. But then I lessen my board in order to do that. So in order for me to use this, I A, have to be at low life, and B, have to lessen my board state as well. Which, if I'm in a safe enough space to lessen my board state, I should be winning already, right? So yeah, you can do things like, okay, I'm going to attack with everything. Okay, that creature's just going to kill mine, it's not even going to trade. Okay, I'll sack it and gain some life instead. Or okay, I'm going to block with a creature and sack and gain some life instead. That's where this could be good. But to get there already, I have to be in a bad place and then a really good place. To me, that's how I say. And so I would play it just to see how it plays, but I'm not going to get super... I would rather, if I'm playing a black-white vampire deck, for example, I would rather have the white one, Legion's Landing, than this one. Because it makes an army for me to win, and life-linking army gains me life, so I would personally rather have that one than Arguel's Bloodfast / Temple of Aclazots. Next card is Bishop of the Bloodstained. It's 3 generic mana and 2 black for an uncommon vampire cleric. It's a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent loses 1 life for each vampire you control. Now, one of the central themes we notice for all our white vampires, at least we'll see it in some black ones as well, is that you get tokens and more tokens and more tokens. So this is kind of, there's the elf for a few sets ago that did this with elves, basically. Then they also gained life, which is, I don't know why this doesn't do that, but anyway. So this is at least going to be a 3/3 that drains your opponent for 1 when it comes in. Ideally, it drains your opponent for 3 to 5 when it comes in, which could just, again, win you the game. Especially if you've been pumping out some vampire tokens, this is just going to be even better for you. So, Bishop of the Bloodstained in your vampire-centric draft deck is going to be great. If you get enough vampires, you know, like 10-ish vampires in your sealed pool at your pre-release, this is going to be great in that deck too. I like vampires, so I want to see this work. With vampires, I like them. I like the aristocrat style play with them, so I want to see it work. Don't get me wrong. Just if you don't get enough vampires to support it, don't force vampires because you get this card. Don't play bad vampires because you get one good one. Okay? So careful about that. Blight Keeper is 1 black mana for a flying 1/1. It's a common creature. It's a bat imp. You can pay, this is the black cycle of the 8 mana do a thing. You can also pay 7 and a black and tap sack it. Target opponent loses 4 life and you gain 4 life. So I like this one. It's an early black evasive creature, and late in the game it can, if you hit 8 mana, it's great because it's just going to do 4 to your opponent and you will gain 4. That 8 life can be a big swing late game. It can even just win you the game on turn 8 because if you're vampiring, hopefully you've drained your opponent enough, or maybe you can attack them enough with some of your flyers. And early evasive threats like this in a pirate deck can set off raid triggers for your turn 2 plays, stuff like that. So I like Blight Keeper because it can go in a number of decks that black wants to be in. Bloodcrazed Paladin. It's generic in a black for a rare vampire knight creature. It's a 1/1, has flash. When it enters, Bloodcrazed Paladin enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature that died this turn. So you can suicide a bunch of vampire create 1/1 tokens, gain a bunch of life, then flash in your Bloodcrazed Paladin. You can block, say you have a bunch of 1/1 lifelink tokens, your opponent comes at you, you can block with all those tokens, have all of them die, and then at the end of their turn flash in a giant Bloodcrazed Paladin. Hopefully that's kind of how you want to play this out. But that's where, you know, that's the ideal situation for this. Even just on its own, I mean, if you have to play it as a 1/1 for 2, you can, but ideally you want to play this as a bigger creature than that. So, Bloodcrazed Paladin in the right kind of deck, if the tokeny, where a lot of stuff is living, dying, you want to have a lot of removal, Bloodcrazed Paladin could be a good card. As long as it's more than a 1/1 for 2, you're playing it right. Boneyard Parley, 5 generic mana and 2 black for a mythic sorcery. Exile up to 5 target creature cards from graveyards, so any number of graveyards. So you can 2 out of your opponent's, 3 out of yours, or if you're playing a multiplayer game, 1 out of everybody's, whatever. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put all cards from the pile of your choice onto the battlefield under your control, and the rest into their owner's graveyards. So turn 7, hopefully you've killed something big and stompy, and there's a few good options in graveyards. Because remember, your opponent gets to make the 2 piles, but then you get to pick. So this is kind of like fact or fiction, but you get creatures instead of spells. So because of that, I can see doing something good. Your opponent's probably going to put like the big stompy thing on its own, maybe the one little thing, and then kind of 3 value creatures on their own. It's probably how this is going to go, and then you make a decision from there. I like it, the reanimating fact of that, because then it got, at worst, I'm making a lot of weird noises. At worst, this buys you blockers for a few turns to get to other stuff to draw a few more cards. At best, this gives you something big and stompy that you get to win the game with. So because of that, I like Boneyard Parley. These big flashy spells in this format, you know, games aren't ending on turn 5 a lot in this, despite the fact of our big aggressive dinosaurs that we're going to get to, but games aren't ending on turn 5. So because that, getting 7 mana isn't going to be unheard of, so if you get to 7 mana, I think having a copy of Boneyard Parley in your deck isn't a bad idea, because by turn 7 there's going to be stuff in the graveyard. That says up to 5 target creature cards. So if there's not 5, you can still cast it and you do 4 creatures or whatever there is. And you're going to get some value out of it. Hopefully you can get 7 mana's value of creatures out of it. You know, if there's a bunch of 1 mana creatures in the graveyard, you're kind of like, eh. But hopefully you get enough creatures out of this that it gets worth it for you. I would include a copy of this and not be upset about it. Contract Killing. So this is our black removal. Overcosted black, kill that. It's 3 generic mana and 2 black for a common sorcery. It says destroy target creature. create 2 colorless treasure artifact tokens with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this is real good, because this essentially is 3 mana, destroy target creature. As long as turn 5 or later, this says 3 mana, destroy target creature. Because you do this first, and you have 2 mana left over. Say if you're playing blue-back pirates, you can play this, leave up your counterspell. You can play this, and play your Bloodcrazed vampire guy that's going to come in as a 2/2 now, right? So because of that, I really like contract killing. If you get that card that says, hey, if you control a bunch of treasures, you just win, this is definitely the kind of card you want to play. But for me, like I said, our deck construction, bombs, then removal. So this is going to be your removal. Play this. If I open a pack and it's got nothing for me, I'm taking contract killing. As a common especially, even though it's 5 mana, yes, but it's 5 mana, kill whatever you want to kill, and then get some mana back. So I'm liking contract killing for sure. Costly Plunder, generic and a black, an instant common. Says, as an additional cost to cast Costly Plunder, sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw 2 cards. So you could do that. You can play you can play our blast card, Contract Killing, then cast Costly Plunder, using your 2 treasure tokens, and sack a little vampire token, and you get to draw 2 cards. That's a pretty good turn to me. You know, or leave up Costly Plunder, leave up this, well, at the end of your opponent's turn, do it at the end of their turn. You know, that's where I see the value of getting that extra mana back from spells, is because it leaves you up to do stuff like this. Draw a couple cards, counter something, play a little creature. That's where those spells get really good. Because we've just played, you know, 5 mana, just kill that before. So if I can play 5 mana, kill that, get 2 mana back, I'm happy with that too. Dark Nourishment, 4 generic mana and a black for an uncommon instant. Dark Nourishment deals 3 damage to target creature or player. You gain 3 life. I personally, yes, it's instant, so cool. But I like the other one better, if only because it's 5 mana and I get to do something else then too. This is 5 mana, and yeah, gain 3, drain 3, and yes, it can target player, so this can just win you the game. So they are close. But I like the other one just because that says kill that. I'd rather just kill that. I'm still including a Dark Nourishment in my deck. Don't get me wrong. I'm still including one of these because it can win me the game, just on this card on its own, because maybe my opponent's at 3. Do 3 to them. You win. Okay. And it's instant speed. So I do still like it. I'm still putting it in my deck, but I do just like to kill that. Whereas this doesn't do much against a 5/5. Deadeye Tormentor. It's 2 generic mana and a black for a common human pirate. It's a 2/2. Also has a raid trigger. When Deadeye Tormentor enters the battlefield, if you attack with a creature this turn, target opponent discards a card. Cool. So our 1 black mana flying Bat Imp. This is the kind of deck you want to include that in with our pirates to set off these kind of raid triggers. Okay, discard. So turn 4 or 5 even. If you draw this guy, oh, you have 1 card left in your hand. Okay, tag the 1/1 flyer. Deadeye Tormentor, discard it please. Oh, it's their big bomb. You know, of course its ID could be a land just as easily, but that's your ideal thing you want to hit with this Deadeye Tormentor. So, raid trigger pirate deck. I would include this in our pirate deck because it's that discard staple on 2/2, which is decent, and the pirate deck tends to go wider than it goes big. So this is just going to be another one of your bodies that helps you go wide, that cares about attacking. So I like Deadeye Tormentor in your pirate deck. Deadeye Tracker for 1 black mana is a rare human pirate creature. It's a 1/1, has an ability that says pay 1 and a black, tap it, exile 2 target creature cards from an opponent's graveyard. Deadeye Tracker explores. Explores, I think this is our first instance of this here. It says reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand if it's a land. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, then put the card back into your or put it into your graveyard. So you essentially get a kind of a reveal scry plus a counter on Deadeye Tracker, or you get a land into your hand. So this either guarantees you're going to hit your land drops or keeps pumping itself, but you do have to exile 2 target cards from opponent's graveyard. So turn 1, through the first few turns, this probably isn't getting any bigger until at least turn 3 or 4 minimum. But still later in the game, this could become a thing. You know, play it turn 6, 7. There's going to be cards in your opponent's graveyard, so you can start. This can turn into a 3/3 or 4/4 pretty easily, or get you into your land drops to play your bigger stuff. So I do like Deadeye Tracker. Deathless Ancient is 4 generic mana and 2 black for an uncommon vampire knight. It has flying and it's a 4/4. It says tap 3 untap vampires you control. Return Deathless Ancient from your graveyard to your hand. So this is kind of one of your bigger threats in the vampire deck. There are other flyers, but this is kind of your top end for your black-white vampire flying dudes. So it's 6 mana for a 4/4, which does seem overcosted, but the fact that you can keep bringing it back and keep bringing it back, because this is the big threat your opponent's probably going to kill. So if you have a bunch of tokens out, you just keep tapping your tokens or your other vampires in order to keep bringing it back and bringing it back and bringing it back. And your opponent is constantly going to have to take care of it, or they're going to run out of either things to block it with, or they're going to run out of removal spells, and eventually Deathless Ancient, just like it says, is going to keep coming back and hit them eventually for 4 and for lethal. So I do like Deathless Ancient. I would definitely include it in any kind of vampire deck, or any kind of vampire deck for sure, and it's a maybe include in other black decks as well that don't have as many vampires. Just because it's 6/6, 4/4 for a flying, 4/4 flyer for 6 is your general dragon price, pretty much too. So might include in any black deck, but for sure for any vampire deck. Desperate Castaways is generic in a black mana for a human pirate at common. It's 2/3, really good, right? 2/3 for 2, holy cow. Desperate Castaways can't attack unless you control an artifact. Unfortunate there. Can block, so it's a solid blocker always, but it can't attack unless you control an artifact, and in most cases it's going to be a treasure. Right? So if you are pirate deck setting off raid triggers and attacking all the time and getting treasure, definitely good include. Not a bad include anyway, just if you're having a more defensive black deck, like a black-blue deck, for example, black-blue pirate deck, this is just a good blocker. So I would not be upset about including a copy of Desperate Castaways. Don't rely on it always being able to attack, though. That's the thing. Unless you have a lot of cards that produce treasure. But don't rely on it being able to attack. DireFleet Hoarder is generic in a black for a common human pirate. It's a 2/1. It says when DireFleet Hoarder dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this is the kind of thing I would play the turn before I play Desperate Castaways, so that I can swing this in, play the Desperate Castaways, and let it have attack the next turn. And also, or set off any other raid triggers, because this gives us our mana back when this dies, essentially. So I do like DireFleet Hoarder. I'd include it in any kind of black, blue, or Esper-ish pirate deck. DireFleet Interloper, 3 generic mana and a black for a common human pirate. It has Menace, and it's a 2/2. Menace is good. It's kind of black's evasion. You don't see a ton of flying in black. Some of the vampires, yes, but usually Menace is more black's type of evasion. When DireFleet Interloper enters the battlefield, it explores. So you're either going to have a 3/3 Menace, or on turn 4 you're going to guarantee that you're hitting 5 mana. So that's pretty good. I'd play it because of the Menace, especially turn 4. Depending on your opponent's kind of deck, there might not be a ton of creatures on board, but this is the kind of creature I can see boarding out potentially. If you're playing against a really aggressive deck, because you want more than a 2/2 on turn 4 if you're playing against something that's playing, 4/4s on turn 4. DireFleet Ravager is real good. I like him. It's 3 generic mana and 2 black for a mythic creature. He's an Orc Pirate Wizard, so real kooky combination there. He's a 4/4, has Menace and Death Touch. When DireFleet Ravager enters the battlefield, each player loses a third of his or her life rounded up. So something like this, I would play this, even though it's not a vampire, I'd play this in my vampire decks, because a lot of our vampire decks were gaining life, like lifelink with all those tokens, right? So losing a third of the life rounded up is going to hurt my opponent more than it hurts me, and this thing has a Menace and Death Touch, so this thing is just made to turn sideways. If our opponent wants to block it, 2 of their things are going to die. This creature is an automatic 2-for-1 for our opponent, unless they have some kind of kill spell. So, yeah, that's a bad argument for any creature, and this is really good unless they have a kill spell, but so is anything. So because that, like, if we're just playing traditional Magic, there's no kill spells floating around, DireFleet Ravager is going to do some work. Duress. I love the art on this Duress. It's black mana. If you've been around, you know what Duress does. Black mana for a common sorcery. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. So this gets your opponent's removal out of their hand, usually. Or they're, like, say if they have one of the legendary enchantments that flips into a land, gets that out of their hand. Right? Love the flavor text on this. I don't go over them a ton, but the flavor text on this is awesome. So if you're not looking at TV, you're not seeing the art. It's just a guy or someone, Kendall, it's a guy or girl, in a boat. You just see the top half of their face, eyes wide, arms hanging over the side of the boat. They're clearly like some castaway lost at sea. Flavor text says, solitude and starvation are brutal punishment, but even worse is all that time to think. Next card, Fathom Fleet Captain is generic mana and a black for a rare creature. It's a human pirate. It's a 2/1 with Menace, so good aggressive creature. Whenever it attacks, if you control another non-token pirate, you may pay 2 generic mana. If you do, make a 2/2 black pirate creature token with menace. That seems good. Turn 2, you drop your 3-drop pirate first. Well, if you don't have any other pirates. Drop 3-drop pirate, attack with them, get in for 2. Next turn, attack with them, because you control another pirate. You can make another menace pirate, and then you can just keep attacking with pirates and menace and winning. It's a good card. Eventually will get outclassed if your opponent plays like 2/1/1s. This is going to die, but if you get a couple creatures out of it, definitely a good aggressive black piratey card. Fathom Fleet Cutthroat is 3 generic mana and a black for a common human pirate. It is a 3/3. When Fathom Fleet Cutthroat enters the battlefield, destroy target creature an opponent controls that was dealt damage this turn. So if you're playing black-red, for example, you can, there's dual shot. Okay, 1 damage to that, 1 damage to that. Play this. Okay, now kill that. That's how you're going to kill a lot of the big creatures if you aren't just drawing your straight-up kill spells. Is when you're Fathom Fleet pinging stuff, whether it's attacking with little tokens that your opponent then blocks, and it's like, okay, I'll eat it, whatever. You play this and finish it off, or you play one of your little ping spells, and then play this and again finish it off. So because of that, I would play it. Hill Giant stats are fine, plus hopefully killing something when it comes in makes it a pretty good card. Grim Captain's Call is 2 generic mana and a black for a uncommon sorcery. Return a pirate card from your graveyard to your hand, then do the same for Vampire, Dinosaur, and Merfolk. So if this is a good sealed card, a draft potentially, if you draft kind of a Vampire Pirate deck, but usually draft you want to be a little more tribal necessarily than that. But I do like it still because you're going to get potentially 2, 3, maybe 4 creatures. I don't see you getting 4 creatures back, but you could get 2 or 3 creatures back usually with this card. You do this on turn 5 or 6 when you have a couple things in the graveyard already, and then you're probably going to be able to play this and then play one of those creatures back, and then your next turn play another one of those creatures and something else. So if your bomb died early, like your big orc pirate captain guy, get him back plus something else, play him again, your opponent this kind of negates your opponent's removal in a way. So I do like Grim Captain's Call. Usually, I don't mind one of these in the black decks. It's either this or there's a 1-mana one we'll see coming up as well, where you can get 2 pirate cards back. Obviously, you're not playing a lot of pirates, you might not do that, but I do like Grim Captain's Call. Heartless Pillage, 2 generic mana and a black for an uncommon sorcery. Target opponent discards 2 cards. It has Raid. If you attack with a creature this turn, create a colorless treasure artifact token with sack. Tap sack, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this is Mind Rot with upside. Mind Rot has been played and limited before, and it is alright. Again, Mind Rot for me, Heartless Pillage, is going to be in that last 20 to 23rd or 24th slot for me. Because it has the Raid upside, might be a little better than that because it's essentially a 2-mana discard 2 cards, so it's not bad. It's pretty good, but for me it's still going to be those last few cards. I'd rather bring my stuff back to present more threats like Grim's Captain's Call, or just present more threats with more creatures, or just kill something, than do this. So, because it definitely has its spots. Sometimes you'll get their big bomb, and they'll discard it, and then you exile it, and your guy gets bigger that we went over earlier. But for the most part, this is just going to be discard 2 cards. Maybe discard 2 cards for 2, a land and a meh creature, but it won't often win you the game. Whereas getting creatures back to play them again and attack with again will win you the game. Kitesail Freebooter, a really good black flyer, is generic mana and a black for an uncommon creature, human pirate. It's a 1/2 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it, exile that card until it leaves the battlefield. So I'd rather play this because it's an evasive threat that also attacks their hand, and you get the information of everything that's in their hand. So I like Kitesail Freebooter in any black deck, whether it's a pirate deck, a blue-black flyer deck, Esper flyer deck, or raid-centric deck, which is going to be a pirate deck. Any of those things, I play Kitesail Freebooter in pretty much any deck that includes black. Lurking Chupacabra, 3 generic mana and a black for an uncommon creature. It's a beast horror. It's a 2/3. Whenever a creature you control explores, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So if you're playing like a black-green deck or a Sultai deck, or black-green-blue deck, then those green and blue are more the explore colors. So this would be a card you would splash for in that explore deck, because 2/3 for that is fine. But when you just happen to explore with your other cards, this is going to kill some of your opponent's creatures. That's where the upside from this comes. But So in a draft deck, say you open third pack, and you're going blue, green, explore, and you open the pack, and the rare's not great for you, there's nothing great in there, but you see this. This is the card I would consider going into a third color for, because this, with those explore cards, this card on its own is going to kill some creatures. It's a 2/3 body, which is fine, blocker and limited, but it's going to do some work on its own too. So this I can see going in a Sultai deck, in a just black deck on its own. There are a couple of explore cards, but not a ton. So if you're doing a 3-color deck, if you feel comfortable doing a 3-color deck, then this is something I would definitely think about doing in there in your Sultai Explore deck for sure. March of the Drowned was a spell I was talking about earlier. It's a common sorcery that says choose one. It's also cost 1 black mana. Choose one. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Return 2 target pirate cards from your graveyard to your hand. So you either get 1 creature or 2 pirates. It's only one black mana, which is for sorcery. But so this is the card you want to play if you're going pirate centric, whereas I would play the other card if you're kind of just black creatures, or a multicolored, multi-creature type deck. So that one more other for sealed, unless you have a lot of pirates in your sealed pool, in which case you play March of the Drowned instead. So are you playing mostly pirates? If so, March of the Drowned. Are you playing a bunch of different creature types? If so, Grim Captain's Call. Right? Sorry to flash around like that. I just forgot the name and it bugged me because I just said that. So depending on your deck composition, pick one of those. It's just one, and play one of those. Mark of the Vampire is a reprint. It's 3 generic mana for a black enchantment aura. It's common. Enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +2/+2 and has lifelink. This, I don't get behind just buff enchantments a lot because you can get 2 for 1. Okay, I'm going to put this on my creature. Well, okay, well, I'm just going to kill that before the enchantment goes on it. That's what I mean by 2 for 1, because now the enchantment is gone and your creature is gone. Your opponent spent 1 card. But if this lands, this is the kind of thing that can make a big impact. So imagine our first card. It's a 3/3 at the beginning of combat. Vampire gets +2/+0. If you put Mark of the Vampire on that creature, it's now a 7/5 lifelink. 7 life is the kind of thing that can buy you more turns, so I'm comfortable just swinging that even if it dies. Or just domes your opponent for 7, which, hey, so Mark of the Vampire, I play copy this. I do like this. There aren't a lot of them that I like, the enchantment aura buffs, but Mark of the Vampire is one of them. Again, I wouldn't play multiples. It's a one of, because this is one of the big impactful ones. So I like Mark of the Vampire. Don't get too over on. Don't rely on the lifelink from this card necessarily in your Vampire deck, but it's a good include for sure. Queen's Agent. 5 generic mana and a black for a common Vampire Scout. It's a 3/3. Has lifelink on its own, and when it enters the battlefield, explore. So again, if you're playing that Sultai deck, this is almost too expensive for me for that. I'd rather be just doing something better than 6 mana for a 3/3 lifelink. Because think about it this way. If I play our 1 black, 1/1 flyer, and then pay on turn 5 for Vampire's Mark of the Vampire, I've played 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer lifelink. Granted, it doesn't let me explore, but in my blue and green, I'm going to have lots of things that explore in that anyway. So Queen's Agent, not super high on it. There should be better stuff in your deck, I hope, so where you're not playing Queen's Agent. Queen's Base Soldier as 2 mana for a 2/2 Vampire Soldier. Bear. It's a Vampire Bear. It's Vampire Soldier Bear. It's not an actual bear. It's a common Vampire Soldier for, it's a 2/2 for a generic and a black mana, which is fine. I've played bears before, but I think there's going to be enough in this set where you don't have to play just vanilla bears. Unless you have something, if you're really playing a vampire-centric deck that cares about vampires and pumps on their vampires and things like that, then play it, but you should have better stuff than Queen's Base Soldier again. Again, if you don't, this is in that area of those 20 to 23rd or 24th cards where you're going to include it in there as your last creature that just happens to make the cut. Because for some reason you have worse stuff, I guess. But again, Queen's Base Soldier, not super high on it. Raider's Wake. 3 generic mana and a black for a uncommon enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. Has Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attacked with a creature this turn, target opponent discards a card. If you're playing a really aggressive, like, I wouldn't be afraid of throwing this in a flyer deck, a black, white, or an Esper, or black, blue, or flyer deck or something, because when you set off all these repeat raid triggers like this, you also want to be sure that you're not just throwing those creatures away. Unless, you know, your opponent's at 2, and then you can throw that creature away because they're going to lose 2 because they have to discard. But, later game, if your opponent's just top decking and playing the card, you play this turn 7. I have an empty hand, I pick up a land, sometimes I might keep that land in my hand to bluff or removal or something, but if it's that or lose 2 life because you're going to attack me or something, I'm just going to play it, because I can, right? So that late in the game, this might not be super effective, but if you can drop this on turn 4 and get some safe attacks in, where your opponent still has cards in hand, then it's going to do some work. So this, to me, is that iffy, possibly a sideboard card, depending on what kind of deck my opponent's playing. Maybe in the right kind of deck, this makes that last 3 or 4 cards, but to me, this is more sideboard in against like more control-y black-blue Dirtle decks. Next. Revel in Riches. I like this card. I want to make a standard deck with this card, but just because I want to make a standard deck with this card doesn't mean it's going to be any good. So, Revel in Riches. It's 4 generic mana and a black for a rare enchantment that says, whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you get a treasure token. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win. So, with Revel in Riches, there are a lot, as we've seen, and we've done, if you watched some of the reviews so far, there are a lot of stuff that gives you treasure. Including that 5 mana counter spell that gives you treasures equal to the converted mana cost of the spell that you countered. So if you can bide your time and play this turn 5, you can have a good number of treasures by turn 5, and then you kill a couple of your creatures, your opponent's creatures, and you get a few more treasures. You might win with treasures, and I kind of want to do that. That's my goal for my pre-release, is to get this card and then win the treasures. But I want to make a standard deck with this because I think with this set now, there's going to be enough control cards. You know, you throw that 5 mana counterspell and get treasure card in with some copies of Torrential Gearhulk and a few copies of this, and I think I can get 10 treasures pretty easy. So because of that, I like Revel in Riches. Limited, maybe. Again, if I have a lot of treasure cards and have a really good control, if I have a lot of treasure cards, a lot of removal, and some good solid creatures to back it up. Basically, if I have a really good deck already, I might consider throwing in Revel in Riches just to do the rub-ins in case I can win with it. If I really need some better creatures, this is going to be one of my first cuts if I don't have a great creature base, for example. But for Standard, I really want to see it in Standard just because it's my kind of thing. I like these alt-win cons like this, so... Revel in Riches, limited, it has its place, but it's a really specific place. Like draft deck more than a sealed, like pre-release deck. But I really want to see it in Constructed. Ruin Raider is 2 generic mana and a black for a rare creature, is an Orc Pirate, is a 3/2, has Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack with a creature this turn, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to the card's converted mana cost. Limited, you don't want to do this. What if you flip over like your big 7 mana spell and you lose because of that? These cards are good in Constructed. I don't, you know, like Bob, but I don't want to play this when I can't control the top of my deck. When I have 5, 6, 7 drops in my deck, I don't want to attack with Ruin Raider or anything while Ruin Raider's on the battlefield. Maybe I draw land, doesn't hurt me, and I need that land. Yes, but I don't want to take 5. On the off chance that I can't control what's on the top of my deck, and I know there's big drops in it. Cards like that are good in Modern because, okay, there's nothing above a 3-drop in my deck. I know I'm not going to be taking anything more than a Bolt for something that's going to have a big impact on the board. Okay. But in Limited, when I could take 25% of my life total just because I attacked you for 1 with a flyer, oh, no thanks. No thanks, Ruin Raider. No thanks. Ruthless Knarve. It's 2 generic mana and a black for a creature Orc Pirate. It's an uncommon, and it's a 3/2. You can pay 2 generic mana and a black, sacrifice a creature, create 2 colorless treasure artifact tokens with tap, sack, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, sacrifice 3 treasures, draw a card. See, this is going in my standard deck too. And then the black-white servo gets you servo's enchantment. Anyway, we'll stop about my brewing. But Ruthless Knarve, this is the kind of thing where if you can crank out a lot of tokens and you want treasures and you happen to include the treasure card, this goes in that deck with Revel in Riches. So if you get Revel in Riches and you're getting a lot of treasure cards, why can't I advance? Ruthless Knarve is going to be one of those cards that goes in that deck because, okay, I'm at 8 treasures, I've killed some of their things, I'm at 8 treasures, Ruthless Knarve, play, sacrifice Ruthless Knarve, get 2 treasures, win, right? So that's why I want to play that. Past that, it's a 3/2 for 3, which is fine. If you have a lot of treasures, you can draw cards if you don't need them for mana. So Ruthless Knarve I would play in a deck that, you know, is giving me some treasures, or it's decent, aggressive black creature. So I would play a Ruthless Knarve even if I don't have the Revel and Riches. Sanctum Seeker is 2 generic mana and 2 black for a rare Vampire Knight. It's a 3/4. And whenever a vampire you control attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Auto include in any vampire deck, for sure. Because remember, vampires who want to go wide, bleed you dry, and hopefully with some flyers as well. So those flyers automatically, when they attack, you lose 1, I gain 1. And hopefully you're taking another 1 to 4 damage from that flyer as well. So it just essentially gives those a power bonus, basically. And a small bit of life gain. And if I'm starting to swarm with like 4 or 5 life-linking vampire tokens, okay, I'm going to attack with them all. You lose 5. Before any damage, I gain 5. You block 2 of them, you take another 3, I gain another 5. I've gained, in the course of that, you've taken 8, I've gained 10, and I've attacked with 5 1/1s. That seems good. So Sanctum Seeker auto-include in any vampire deck, for sure. I would even include it in anything that's not vampire-centric. This is something I would include in a sealed deck, even if I only have 5 or 6 other vampires. Just because it's a 3/4 for 4, which is fine, and when it attacks, you lose 1, I gain 1. That's fine on its own. That's an uncommon card. In a draft deck or any kind of constructed vampire deck is when this really shows its muscle. Again, I like vampires, so I'm a little biased, but but even in a sealed deck, you might get a few of those gain 1, lose 1 triggers off of other creatures, but 3/4 for 4 on its own, that has a drain gain clause, is fine too. Seeker's Squire is a generic and a black for an uncommon 1/2. It's a human scout. When it enters the battlefield, it explores. So again, in your Explore deck with a Chupacabra, this is something I'd include, because it's 1/2 for 2, it's a little body to get on the board, blocks, explores, so it could be a 2/3 for 2 that gets to attack, or it's going to guarantee you that you hit your later land drops as well. So it's upside, 2/3, or you're guaranteeing your next couple land drops. So I like Seeker's Squire, and I would play it in that Explore deck, or maybe even just as a later cut creature, around 20th, include in a black deck as well. Skittering Heartstopper is black mana for a common insect. It's a 1/2, and you can pay a black, and it gains Death Touch until end of turn. These creatures, I always play at least 1 or 2 of these creatures in my black deck, just because what do you do when they're attacking with their 5/5? You have a bunch of 1/1s, 2/2s, 3/3s, 2/3s, whatever. Oh, but your 1/2 that you can pay a black and give it Death Touch is holding off their 5/5 because they can just kill it. So because of that, I always like to play these cheap little Death Touchy creatures because they can hold back a sizable board just on their own. I like Skittering Heartstopper, and I would play 1 or 2 copies depending on my 1-drops. Auto-include 1 if I get one, for sure. I always play at least 1. If my 1-drops are a little weak, I might play 2. Because it's good early to stall the board out. It's good late because it's, like I said, this will hold back 5/5s and bigger creatures. Like, if your opponent plays the big green 9/9 dinosaur, this can kill that. So turn 8 when they play that, you can drop another one of these. Okay, come at me. I'm fine. Skittering Heartstopper, definite. Include at least 1, maybe 2. Skullduggery is a black for a common instant. Until end of turn, target creature you control gets +1/+1, and target creature and opponent controls get -1/-1. So this is a solid combat trick in black for 1 black mana. I've played tricks like this before and paid more money for them, so I will play this one too. Skullduggery is good, as sometimes it'll just kill. There's a lot of X1s in this format. We've seen that, like this. So there's a lot of X1s in this format, and this will just straight up kill those and let you get in for more damage with another creature, or even just trick combat in your favor. There's a number of scenarios where this is good in, so because it's so versatile and you can use it in a lot of situations, just play Skullduggery, and I love the name. Skymarch Bloodletter is a really good card, and I really like this card. 2 generic mana and a black for a common vampire soldier. It's a 2/2 with flying. When it enters battlefield, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So I drop this on turn 3, drain 1, gain 1. I drop the whenever vampire attacks, drain 1, gain 1 guy on turn 4. I attack with this, it hits for 2, it drains and gains. Skymarch Bloodletter, I would very gladly play 2 of these, maybe even 3 of these in like 3 in a draft deck, because 3 2/2 flyers are going to get over a lot of boards because ground's going to be gummed up. And the drain gain clause will matter when it enters. If you can bounce it, bring him in again, do a lot of things with that, and just 2/2 flyers are good. 2/2 flyers for 3, Windrake with upside, so I'll play it. Spreading Rot, 4 generic mana and a black for a common sorcery. Destroy target land if the controller loses 2 life. If my opponent has one of the legendary enchantments that flip into a land, I'd sideboard this in, but I'm not including it on its own, unfortunately. Sword Point Diplomacy. Love the name of this. 2 generic mana and a black for a rare sorcery. Reveal the top 3 cards of your library. For each of those cards, put that card into your hand unless any opponent pays 3 life, then exile the rest. Flavor text, I love the flavor text on this too, says, take my blood if you want, just don't take my gold. So you play this, reveal top 3 cards. For each of those cards, put that card into your hand unless an opponent pays 3 life. So, okay, first card's good creature. Okay, they're going to pay 3 life. Exile that card. Second opponent's a land. Okay, they don't pay 3 life, put that in my hand. Second card's whatever good creature again, so they pay 3 life. Exile it as well. So I just paid 3 life to do 6 to my opponent. I can get a land in my hand. That's fine. I would play this just because I like cards like this. Again, if you haven't gotten the vibe from me already, I like the aristocrat style play. Now, giving your opponent the choice is never a good thing. But if I can just draw 3 cards for 3 in black, revealed cards, reveal top 3 cards of your library, put them in your hand. If my opponent doesn't want to do that, that's fine. If I can pay 3 mana to draw 2 cards and do 3 to my opponent, or pay 3 mana to draw 1 card and do 6 to my opponent, or pay 3 mana to do 9 to my opponent, that's fine too, to me. So I'm personally playing Sword Point Diplomacy if I get one, and hopefully I get one. Vanquish the Weak. 2 generic mana black for a common instant, destroy target creature with power 3 or less. I'd play a copy of this because your opponent's gonna have smaller creatures, gonna have 0x's, 1x's, 2x's, 3x's, and this is just gonna kill him at instant speed for 3 mana. So kill spells, again, bomb creatures, removal is right there. This goes in your removal. Vicious Conquistador. For a black mana, it's an uncommon vampire soldier. When Vicious Conquistador attacks, each opponent loses 1 life. It's a 1/2. That's fine. So it's a 1/2, so won't trade with 1/1s on your opponent's side. Even if your opponent has a 0/3, like the Trilobite guy, attack with this into it. They're going to still take 1. This dream scenario, get attack for 2 or 3 turns with this, and your opponent's going to lose 6 because you attacked with your 1 mana guy. So I like Vicious Conquistador, and I'd play a copy or 2 for sure. That's a vampire, so hey. Vraska's Contempt. 2 generic mana and 2 black for a rare instant. Exile target creature or planeswalker. You gain 2 life. You're going to play this if you get it. It's great removal. It's exile the thing. It's gone. It's instant speed. Yes, it's 4 mana. That's just what we have to pay nowadays for this kind of effect. And you get to gain 2 life. So instant speed, creature or planeswalker removal. Vraska's Contempt is something you're going to play. This is in your bomb cards. This is, bombs, creatures, and removal. This is in that line between bombs and removal. So this is both a bomb and removal. So yes, you're going to play this. Walk the Plank. I got the promo art for this because I love it. Also, this was the artist's Christopher Meller. So apologize if I butchered your name. This was his last illustration before he retired from doing magic art. So it's just really want to showcase that. So Walk the Plank. It's 2 black mana. Destroy target non-merfolk creature. It's uncommon sorcery. In Sealed, you're going to play this. Even if you're playing against a black-blue deck, not all their creatures are going to be merfolk. This is going to be able to target the vast majority of creatures. So if you're playing black, you're playing this card because it's going to kill things for 2 mana. So play the card. I'm not going to tell you twice. Yeah, I am. Play the card. Wanted Scoundrels. Generic mana and a black for an uncommon human pirate. It's a 4/3. What? It's a 4/3 for 2 mana? Wait for it. When it dies, target opponent creates 2 colorless treasure artifact tokens. Yeah. So yes, it's really aggressive. This is one of those spells where, one of those creatures where it's going to get sided out probably, because you're going to play it. You're going to your opponent's going to kill it on turn 3 or 4. Then they're going to play their 6-drop on turn 4 or 5, and you'll be like, oh, I shouldn't have given them those treasure tokens. So I like the flavor text on this card because it tells you. The flavor text on this card, if you're not looking at the screen, says, "Trust me, the reward's not worth it." So with this card, in the right deck, if your opening hand has this and Walk the Plank and Vraska's Contempt, and you're able to remove your opponent's blockers, you might get in for like 12 damage with this. But like, I feel like this is more often than not going to be good for your opponent than it's going to be good for you. Like the flavor text says, "Trust me, the reward's not worth it." So with that, we'll go back to our Walk the Plank art because it's awesome. With that, we will end our black set review. So what did you guys think? Was there anything that you disagreed with me with, that you agreed with me with? Do you think cards are going to be better than I thought, worse than I thought? I'd love to hear back from you down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, subscribe, spread the word, let everybody know what Gas City Gaming is doing. I'm going to have fun in my pre-release. What are you guys hoping to play for your pre-release? What are you hoping to open? If you're watching this after your pre-release or after you've had some time with the Ixalan cards, what are you playing? What are you interested in? How did they perform for you? Love to hear back from you down below. So I hope you guys have an awesome pre-release this weekend if you're watching it before. If not, just have a good day, and I will see you guys again.